Hey everybody!
Hi there, welcome. We are going through the creation account. We figured it would be a great way to start the new year by looking at what God did first. The first things of the Bible. What we're going to do is be taking these verse by verse, kind of breaking it down. We've got questions, answers, things, our own thoughts. We're going to take a couple days to read each day. Really, we want you guys to be studying along. Take a couple days to read each thing individually. Make your own notes. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat window or reach out to us in any way. And let us know, and we'll do our best to get back to you and answer those questions. But we hope that these videos, we have a lot of content for it, so we hope that we're able to answer questions before you even ask them. So this is the first one. We're going to be looking at day 1, which covers Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 through 5. Thank you, Emily. I was about to say that. Genesis 1 through 5, day 1. So, all right. Yeah, read the first verse there, Emily.
So, I'm reading from New King James. It says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." Super, super small.
Super small, right. It seems like small beginnings for such a great accomplishment that God had there. Do you have any initial thoughts, comments on these few verses?
So, my thoughts are probably way less than yours, so I'll go first. So, I noted that God was in the beginning, right? In the beginning, God. So
Right.
we know that God was there in the beginning. He was before the beginning, right? Because he's outside of time.
Yeah.
And that he made time, right? Because he created it. I think it's cool that we have a God who is creative.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm creative to a certain extent.
You are.
Not as creative as God, I'm sure.
Right.
So I thought that aspect was really neat. And then I also, it says, so I pointed out that heavens, it says heavens, right? So
Right.
it's plural. And that means there's more than one. So so just to a quick note, I have the first heaven, which is the sky, which is noted in verse 20. And then the second, which is outer space, which is verse 14. And then the third heaven, which is where God is, and I pulled that from Deuteronomy 10:14 and 1 Kings 8:27. So those are just, I mean, we can dig deeper into that because we'll go further. It's going to get more talked about within the verses.
Yeah, as we continue on throughout the days, we'll break these down a little bit more.
Right.
But right now, we're just focusing on day 1.
So I also noted, too, that earth was singular. And so this is super important to me because it shows me that there is a uniqueness for earth, right? We're a special thing that God created, and there is only one. And to me, that kind of debunks, like, are there other earth forms outside of, our earth? And so I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
It is.
And that would be the end of my thoughts on verse 1.
That's all you have? Wow. I got quite a bit more. I thought that this was really cool. I took in our English Bibles, we have "in the beginning God created," so there's a number of words there. If you go back to the Hebrew words, it's only 3 words. So really, we've got the first 3 words of the Bible here. Bereshit Elohim bara, right? In the beginning, God Elohim bara created. I thought it was really cool that word bara, created, is only ever used of Elohim, our God, right? He's the only God that does the act of creation. He's really the only one that can create something from nothing. Humanity, if you look at us, Emily says she's creative. I'm a little creative too. But our creativity is molding and using the things that are around us, right? We're not making...
We create with the created.
Right. We are making from the created.
Yes.
Right? We can't create something from nothing. And this is really important, how creation opens up with this pre-existent God that creates something out of nothing. If you go to like the polytheistic accounts or the pagan accounts about their gods, all of those gods work within time and nature. They don't have a God that is outside of time and nature, and that's where the God of the Bible is. The true God, the God that created all. He exists outside of everything. Which I thought that was really cool, right? You have God that creates time and space and matter in this one verse, right? Mm-hmm. You have in the beginning, that's when time is created. The heavens, that is space. And then you have the earth, which is matter, the things of, right, that we have. So you have time, space, and matter all created in this one verse, which I thought that was really cool. The other thing that I thought was cool is the first name of God that we have here. So the very first name that we see for God, Elohim, comes right here, second word if you're in the Hebrew. And Elohim, when you look at names in the Bible, biblical names, they don't just convey the identity of a person, but they also kind of convey the personality, the traits of the person. That's really why names are used. And Elohim, it is a plural word. It can sometimes be used of idols in other passages in the Bible, like if you go into the Psalms and other parts where they talk about idols, false gods, they use the word Elohim because it's a plural word. We don't get that sense here. That word, when it's used for false gods, there's only 300 to 400 times that it's used in that sense. Whereas when it's talking about the one true God, there's over 2,300 times that Elohim is used to speak about God. And really, there's a lot of doctrine, there's a lot of controversy around why there's a plural word here. Some say that it speaks of the Trinity, right? You see the Trinity all the way back in creation. That's something that's really debated among scholars a lot. What I think is really important to take away is that it denotes a majesty about God, right? That he's stateless, he's outside of time. He's majestic, right? So that Elohim. I think we're ready to move on to verse 2. That's our thoughts from that. So you want to read verse 2, and then we'll get into thoughts on it.
Sure. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. So I can go first again.
Yeah.
Because again, I probably have less.
Probably.
So I just took it like word for word. So for me, where it says the earth was without form and void, so I have such a hard time wrapping my head around the fact that the earth was without form and void. I mean, I can imagine it to a certain extent, but I'm so used to seeing the world the way it is,
right?
And so it's hard for me to fathom what it would look like without its form. So that was something I pulled from that. Okay, how would I imagine it? And trying in my head to do so. And then I also thought it was interesting, and so just after that it says, and darkness was on the face of the deep. So just noting that God, it doesn't say that God created darkness, right? Darkness was just there.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. And then the face of the deep. It's what is the face of the deep?
Yeah.
So first question, what's the face of the deep? which is probably not something that anybody's going to be able to answer.
Yeah, it pretty much is. It's one of those things that it's not really known what the face of the deep is. Some people would say that kind of refers to like the emptiness of space.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's where Earth is in. It's in space. It's in the heavens. In the midst of the heavens, you have the Earth. So that's where some would say over the face of the deep, the depth of outer space.
Yeah.
That's at least one answer that I found reasonable.
I mean, I think it's a fair answer. But, so then I also, where it says the Spirit of God, or the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. So just noting that God was mentioned in verse 1, and then within verse 2, the Spirit of God is mentioned, which is the Holy Spirit. So,
right.
So you've got the two aspects of the Trinity there.
Yeah.
So I thought that was important to pull out as well. Just to note, right, the Earth is made up of like 71% water. So.
Wow, where'd you get that from?
Oh, I Googled that.
That's a Google.
So I thought that was an interesting thing to say because, right, where he was hovering over the face of the waters, and so the Earth is made up of a lot of water. And
right.
I think that's and then I compared that to my Google search. So I just thought, it was cool and interesting.
Yeah.
So that's all I have for verse 3.
That is cool and interesting. So yeah, I hovered around the earth was without form and void for a little bit, and digging into that, the without form and void are two words in Hebrew: tohu and vohu. Tohu without form, void, vohu. And really, tohu, it speaks of like an emptiness, a wasteland. Same thing with vohu, very similar in that the instances where these two words are used together are usually in the context of a judgment. So some kind of judgment is when they're used in later passages throughout the Bible. There's two theories here as to how and why the earth is without form and void and why there is darkness over the world. The first theory is that this could be the fall of Satan. That God creates the heavens and the earth, the heavens including the heavenly hosts, which would be the angels. And then in between verse 1 and 2, you have the fall of Satan, which is recorded in Ezekiel 28. And then that's when judgment occurs, tohu and vohu, and causes darkness over the world. The only way this really works is if you retranslate the beginning of the verse to say, instead of saying the earth was without form, into saying the earth became without form and void. So it's kind of like you have to retranslate a little bit. It's possible. It's a theory. We don't know for sure. That's the big takeaway.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to know. It's a theory.
It's a theory, that we don't know the answer. The other theory, which makes more sense from a wording perspective, looking at the Hebrew words and forms, is that this is just a brief introduction of what verses 1 and 2 are. A brief introduction, a parentheses, if you will, and what follows is the actual account. So God's just describing that there's this darkness, and that there's it's going to continue on with the meticulous acts of creation.
Yeah.
And we do see that, right, in the next verse. So, Emily, you want to read verse 3?
Sure. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. It's another short one.
Another short one. But just to kind of continue on my thought there, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Me stepping over you there.
I don't have much on this verse.
That's great. I do. You have one of the cool things about this chapter and the beginnings of the earth is that there's a lot of separation, right? God is separating things, and in this, He's separating the light from the darkness. And you see, I want to turn over to this. 2 Corinthians 4:6.
I'm already there.
Well, cool. You want to read it?
Sure. 4:6, right?
Yes, 4:6.
For it is the God who commanded light to shine out of darkness, who has shown in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ.
Thank you. So in this, Paul is drawing a parallel between the light and the darkness being created here to the light and the darkness that comes from Jesus Christ, right? The light of Jesus Christ is the knowledge of salvation. The darkness is our sinful state, right? So Paul is drawing that's a same parallel there to what's being done here. And we see this throughout the creation account, that there's this separation that's going on between the different things. That's kind of what I had on that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that I had a really hard time with this verse. Because the light is not the sun, right? Because we know that comes later in creation. But it's a light that comes from God.
Yep.
And God was already there. And my brain is like, well, God is light. Mm-hmm. And so it's a mystery for me, and one that I don't know that I can fully comprehend.
Yeah, I can see that.
So yeah, I didn't write too much beyond that because it was a little hard for me to
comprehend a light that is not the sun.
Kind of like the earth being without
form and void. Yeah.
So I kind of camped it there, and I was like, okay, well, I don't fully understand this, but we're not going to fully understand everything of God because there's the mysteries of God.
The fact that God was there in the beginning. He was before the beginning.
Right. So he's outside of all of this, and I can't limit him and put him in a box and say, no, it has to be this way. So it's just, it's just a cool thing to think about, and just, I can't fathom it, basically. But that's okay, because we're not going to be able to do that with everything in the Bible. Yeah. We're not going to understand everything we read, and not everything is going to make sense.
Verse 4.
Or do you have more for verse 3?
No, that's really the only other thing I wanted to note is that God speaks his will and it is done, right? He doesn't say anything other than let there be.
Right, there's no wand.
There's no magic wand, there's no magic words, there's no, casting of a spell. It's let there be. He says it, and his will is done. And it's so amazing and so powerful.
Okay, so verse 4 says, and God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. So, God saw the light, and he said it was good. So, he didn't mention that the darkness was good, right? We've addressed now that the darkness was not... It's probably not a good thing.
That kind of really goes back to Paul in 2 Corinthians. It goes back to a sub-theme of John. If you look at the book of John, which we might do later this year, 2022, Christmas hint right there. You look at John, one of the sub-themes is light versus darkness.
Yeah.
Right? And how Jesus has conquered the darkness and is the light of the world. And so you see that here in Genesis, and it's a sub-theme of John's gospel, which is really cool.
And then to me, I thought it was interesting that God divided the light from the darkness.
Yeah.
So, originally, when you're reading all this, you're like, well, the light can't be with the dark. Right? You can't be in the dark and have a light there because the light will take away the dark. And but before he divided it, my brain thinks, it's kind of like speckles of light throughout the darkness. Or I don't know. I mean, this is, again, going back to
it could have been like a zebra.
It's hard to comprehend,
Could have been like the stripes of a zebra.
Well,
where you have darkness, light, darkness, light,
To me, that was that's so weird.
Yeah.
But cool at the same time. So, yeah, I just thought God dividing it and that, again, showing his power. Right? I liked that. So that's kind of what the Lord was showing me. What do you got?
No, that I kind of said it as you were talking there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then I'll go to verse 5. So last verse, verse 5 says, God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So the evening and the morning were the first day. It mentions that God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And so when we go further into creation, it talks about how Adam got to name the animals and all the things like that. So I just thought, how cool is it that God named it, right? That he gave Adam the authority or the ability to name certain things in the earth, but that he chose to name the night.
Well, that is really God expressing his authority over the light and the darkness.
But I liked that. You know, I know that popped out to me. It stood out to me with that.
Yeah. And that even there flies in the face again to your pagan gods, the polytheistic, nature of the world around the Jews at this time is their gods exist within this framework that this God Elohim creates. He is the only one that has the authority to name the light day and the darkness.
Well, not just that, the authority to divide.
Yeah. The authority to divide,
dark.
The authority to name it. And we're going to see that as he continues to divide things in the next couple of days. Yeah.
It's really interesting. I also had a hard time comprehending the fact that there's no sun, guys.
Yeah.
So the first day and the first night, we look at it as a day when the sun, like we circle.
We go around the sun.
And there is no sun.
Yeah.
And also the earth was still without form.
Yeah.
So I just find it really hard to comprehend, but very fascinating at the same time, because it's just this is unique, cool, interesting things.
And the big thing about that though is I think the way that it's worded like that, there's evening and morning and the first day. What God is doing in this, or what Moses, he's the supposed writer of Genesis, what he's doing in this is he's setting that framework of a 24-hour day.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You have time in the beginning. Time is created, so now God is operating within this system of time, and
that does make sense to me. But it's hard because of the sun thing.
Right,
and for us, that's what.
Yeah, but he's operating within the system of time. And in order for this system of time to function, it has to be a 24-hour time frame. That's how God designed it. And so what he's doing here is he's showing how God creates time in the beginning, and God operates within time now that it is created by him.
Yeah.
He's operating within it, and he's showing that there is a 24-hour period, which is a day. He's setting up that framework of what a day means.
Yeah.
And really, that's what that word day refers to. 24 hours is a day.
Right.
So that's...
So I really liked that. I'm enjoying this a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I love talking about creation. I may not understand everything, but it's just really awesome.
Well, yeah, and if you think about it, creation really is the starting point of theology. If you don't have the biblical account of creation as your foundation, then the rest of the Bible can just be taken willy-nilly, however you want. We can't lose the historical accuracy and reliability of what God's Word says. It's really critical and fundamental, because then if you lose this, you go to the pagan beliefs, the pagan ideas about creation, which are all wonky and all over the place. And as I've said before, those gods, little g gods, they all work within this creation. None of them actually created anything out of nothing.
Yeah, which I think is super interesting because I don't think when I was reading through it, like that is not what popped into my head, but you were able to bring that out, and I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, and the last note that I want to mention about this is back to comparing Elohim, our God, to the pagan gods. The Bible, the Torah, the first book here, Genesis, it opens up with the creation of the world. Right? We commonly say that the Old Testament is the book of the Jews, right? The Torah is the Jewish Bible, the Jewish books. Jesus is the Jewish Messiah, right? But that's not what we see here. Another facet about the pagan gods is when they start their creation stories, they create a specific people group, a specific region, right? They create that. But here we have the creation of the world. This is the only account where that happens, where you have the creation of the world from the beginning. And it's not until chapter 11 of Genesis that we see Abraham being called out of the world and being called to be a Jew, a specific person, a specific people group. That happens later. But here in the beginning, we have our God, the true God, creating the world, creating everything within it for everyone. And that really just goes to show how this Jewish God really is the God of everyone. That was one of the themes of the book of Luke. If you followed our series in December, right, we saw how Jesus is the Messiah for everyone, and here we see how God is the God, the creator of everyone.
Yeah, it's really, really, really awesome.
Yeah, cool.
So
that was day 1. Join us for our next video where we're going to go over day 2. Be sure to read it ahead of time, cuddle up with your favorite commentaries, write questions, send them in, and we'll do our best to get back with you on those.
Yeah, we look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.
All right, take care.